Have you ever wondered what school was like in Gotham? Welcome to Comicstorian Full Story, where we combine complete stories into longer full stories. Today is a fun little comic that I remember Benny telling me about years ago, Gotham Academy. A look at what school is like in Gotham. Not much else to say, so here you go, Gotham Academy.
Our story opens on two young girls of the prestigious Gotham Academy, Olive and a girl going by the name of Maps. The headmaster of this fine academic institution is welcoming Maps to the school ground and informing Miss Olive Silverlock that she will be showing the girl around. But Olive and Maps already know each other. Olive is, or was, dating Maps' brother Kyle. She doesn't really know anymore. After this summer, she hasn't spoken to Kyle and she hasn't told Maps, so Maps thinks her brother and Olive are still dating. No one knows what happened to Olive, and she isn't talking either. But it's on her mind, and she absent-mindedly shows Maps around the school in the rain. Things have been rough for Olive, not because she's dealing with the popular kids like Palmline French, or the troublemaking kids like Colton Riviera, but she's also hearing rumors that Gotham Academy is now haunted. And her roommate isn't liking this new depressed Olive, the one that stares at the pictures of her mother and of her and Kyle. So she just wants to have fun and relax, and explore the massive grounds that make up this academy. Olive finds Maps drawing up the school grounds, and she asks her, "Tomorrow do you want to skip the assembly and check out the creepy parts of the old chapel instead?" So while the assembly comes together below them, the two girls begin to snoop around the attic of the chapel. It seems pointless and they aren't finding anything of interest, until Maps looks out the window, and she swears that she sees something moving in the North Hall. The North Hall was declared unsound after an incident during the summer, and no one should be there. But sure enough, Olive believes Maps. So the two of them decide to climb a little higher to the belfry so that they can get a better look. But since it's all broken and damaged, Maps has to lead the way, explaining that she knows exactly how to traverse broken beams and iffy walkways. She is always her party leader in their local role-playing game. Once they reach the top, Maps comments that they can see all of Gotham now, and that's when they see the bat signal come on. Ugh, I hate that thing, Olive says. No, it means we're on the right track, Maps tells her. And then Maps falls off the belfry when the ledge gives way. She begins to hang for her life off of a gargoyle, asking for Olive's help. With tears streaming down her face in fear, she screams, "Olive! Olive!" and Olive vanishes somewhere else on the roof. But then we see a rope come down the side and Olive begins to rappel down to get Maps. Both girls begin to clutch to the rope for their dear lives, when suddenly bats begin to fly out of the belfry and both girls lose their footing and they begin to fall to the bottom of the rope, where they dangle in front of the window, which is overlooking the entire assembly. The keynote speaker, Bruce Wayne, turns around and sees the girls. Olive. Both of the girls are brought to the nurse's office to see if they're okay, and the nurse shines a light into Olive's eyes to check her pupils. That's when Olive swears she sees Batman coming for her. "No, get away from me! You're not gonna take me too!" she screams. But as the light is removed from her eyes, she sees that she's yelling at Bruce Wayne. "I'm sorry, Mr. Wayne. I don't know what happened," she tells him, confused. "That was quite a stunt, Miss Silverlock. I wanted to make sure you weren't hurt. You saved your friend's life, and that was quite a feat." But Olive doesn't care about that. Kyle and Maps thank her for saving Maps, and Maps exclaims it's just like Batman saved her. Olive just walks back to her room to call it a night, and when she gets there, she finds her roommate cowering beneath the covers. She swears she saw the ghost. Olive, on the other hand, thinks that it was just the bat signal shining through the window. They'll be fine. Olive is kind of right, it wasn't a ghost, but there is an eyeball staring at them through the walls. The next night, Olive is trying to have a normal life while reading the diary of Millie Cobblepot, a member of the Cobblepot family that went missing back in Gotham's earliest days, because she went crazy. When out through the window, she swears that she sees something odd, people in cloaks running past holding a weird object. Only in Gotham can you see this. Olive then goes to class the next day where she volunteered to work with the popular girl, Palmline. They need to get their Gotham history projects done, so they begrudgingly go to the library together. And then with the help of the librarian, Mr. Scarlet, Olive tries to find the book, The Gates of Gotham, and that's when she sees an odd boy with very red eyes. He was just looking at her, kind of weird, and then he was gone when Palm interrupted her. The book that Olive and Palm were looking for contains maps of the school's grounds and various other interesting facts that were handwritten into it, like the fact that there's a cemetery behind the North Hall. But Palm quickly takes the book from Olive. All this time it was right there? Olive is curious. What do you mean all this time? Keep your nose in your business if you don't want to lose it. And then Pom leaves. Smell you later, bandwagon. Olive spends the rest of her day hiding beneath the bleachers because she doesn't know what to do. She can't tell Kyle what happened, but she really doesn't want to just end it with him. One of the teachers then finds her and helps her out, telling her that the summer didn't change who she was deep down. She just needs to keep digging until she can find herself. Thinking about it, Olive returns to her room to find Maps is there about to hit the wall with a hammer. Olive's roommate apparently asked Maps to find out what she keeps hearing in the walls, and Maps' answer was to tear the walls apart. Olive storms over to Maps and begins to drag her out of their room before they can all get caught out after curfew. But that's when they see the cloaked figures running across the school grounds again. They follow the person and they find the graveyard behind the North Hall, and then they find an odd-looking crypt in a tree. Maps is crazy excited because all of her dungeon crawling fantasies are about to come true. But Olive just wants to know what's going on, and when they finally get inside, they see 3 people in cloaks and masks chanting. Olive quickly recognizes the book that Pomline took from her, and she walks over to the chanting fools and takes it. This doesn't belong to you. Pomline tells her to give it back, and they accidentally knock over one of the candles, but Olive has had enough of being pushed around. No, you don't know who you're dealing with, she tells Pomline, and I swear, the flames around Olive seem to react and swirl around her. The other 2 that were with Pomline threw water onto the flames, and they put them out, leaving Olive standing there dripping. And that's when all 5 kids went back to their rooms. The next night, more oddities happen when Olive's roommate shrieks because she swears that she sees the ghost. As a matter of fact, it's Millie Cobblepot's ghost. Pomline also shows up and blames Olive. It's all your fault that Millie Cobblepot's ghost is roaming free. But before Pom can explain further, the headmaster arrives and they agree that they'll discuss everything tomorrow. Pomline explains that she was just goofing around and that she summoned Millie Cobblepot's ghost, or someone else's ghost. Either way, she summoned a ghost. So Olive agrees to give them a hand, but before they can make any other plans, Kyle finally finds her. Olive, we need to talk. And they do just that at the local creek. Kyle explains that he missed her, and he just wants to know what's going on. So Olive explains that she didn't mean to push him away. It's just that her mom, she's been sick and in the hospital, and the hospital collapsed, putting her mother on life support. Kyle pauses. I didn't know, I'm sorry. I still care about you, Kyle, she says, slightly touching his hand. But you need space, I get it. Look, I'll always be here for you if you need me. It's okay to break my heart, I can take it. Just don't break Maps' heart too. So, Olive does it, and she brings Maps into the investigation with Pomline. The group decides that there has to be something going on in the Northern Hall. It's been locked up all summer, and that's right where these ghost sightings started, so their investigation might as well begin there. Olive, Maps, and Pom all bring Colton along to pick the locks, and he gets them inside with his amazing lock-picking skills that stupefy Maps with just how awesome it is. Inside, they find a place that looks like it was damaged by fire, with a big hole in the bottom floor. And as soon as Olive enters, she knows that she's been here before. But when? That's when she gets a flash of a fire in the building, and a bat-shaped man standing in it. All of these are memories, but she just doesn't know when this happened, and Pomline turns to her. Olive, snap out of it, we're on a ghost hunt, remember? All of the kids go to the hole, and Pom uses her phone to shine down into it to see what's going on down there. And that's when she accidentally drops her smartphone. Oh well, I have 2 more back in my room, she tells the group, and she begins to get up and leave. But Olive can't even afford one of these, so she reaches down into the hole for it. And that's when a big green scaly hand comes up. All of the kids panic and they run out of the building. The next day, both Olive and Pom look at the sealed North Hall. That wasn't Millie's ghost, Olive tells her, and Pom agrees. That was something else. But the facility knows that somebody went into there and they've sealed it up for the safety of the students. Olive begins to wander around the campus trying to decide what's going on and what she should do when she accidentally falls down some stairs and is caught by the mysterious boy with red eyes. Shocked, she asks him, "How did you?" But he cuts her off. "This isn't the first time that I've caught you, Olive." And he walks away, leaving her to her own thoughts again. That night, as they're sitting in her room, Olive and Maps begin to try and put this all together and come up with a plan to investigate and where to go. When Maps begins to shout, "Look, Olive!" And outside of their window appears to be a corpse. The corpse of Millie Cobblepot! Olive has had enough of this ghost nonsense, and she runs over to the window, breaking it with her flashlight, and she grabs the ghost. It's just a mannequin with a dress on. So Olive tells Maps to stay in the room and keep packing for their investigation, while she goes to the roof to see who's behind this. And who's behind this whole ghost thing? It's one of Pom's two friends. As it turns out, he has a bit of a crush on her and he wanted to make her happy, so he was trying to make her think that she had summoned the ghost. Olive tells him that if he cuts it out, she'll keep this between them, but she does want some information. Who is the blonde kid with red eyes? Oh, that's Tristan Gray, some kind of exchange student, he says. Well, with those two mysteries solved, Olive begins to walk down the steps, and that's when she begins to remember some lines from Millie Cobblepot's journal. One about secret passageways and loose stones with a special symbol on it. Seeing the symbol, she decides she's going to press the loose stone to see what happens, and that's when she reveals a hidden passageway in the building. Oh boy, this girl is all about adventure, huh guys? So in the middle of the night, she begins to creep behind the girls' dorm, and she discovers that there's a peephole into every one of the girls' rooms. So she runs to the backside of her own room where she can see that Maps is still trying to pack their bags, and she yells for Maps to join her in this hidden passageway. Well, curious as ever, Olive keeps going, figuring that Maps will just catch up. And that's when she sees the ghost, the hand, the thing behind the walls that has everyone spooked. It's Killer Croc. But he doesn't look mad, and he doesn't look angry. He looks sad, and he's holding a picture of Olive. So Olive doesn't run. I won't tell anyone you're here, but I think you knew my mom, and I need you to tell me about her. Sybil Silverlock. You were in Arkham with her, weren't you? And Croc just stands there silent. Don't just stand there, say something. How else did you get the picture of me? The name's Croc, and yeah, I knew you, Ma. Her cell was across from mine, and she had this photo on her wall, and she gave it to me before Arkham collapsed. I promised her that I would look out for you. She remembers me? Olive says, surprised, but before she can get any more information, Maps begins to catch up, shouting, Olive! I'm lost in the walls and it's amazing! Ugh! Croc says, shocked, and he begins to run off. Nobody can know that I'm here! I can't go back to Arkham! And he takes off into the tunnels, just as Maps arrives and bumps into Olive. You won't believe this, Olive! I saw a lizard man! Lots of hit points and they never drop anything good. Friend or foe? Friend, I think, but there's only one way to find out. So the girls begin to try and follow Croc. But they end up at a dead end because he closed the tunnel as he ran away, leaving Olive with no answers. So the next day they get the whole team together, Pom, Colton, Maps, and Olive. And Olive explains that it was actually an escaped Arkham inmate this whole time, and she needs to find him, because he's a friend. But as they begin to develop their plans, Kyle stops by. So Olive decides to ask him to the upcoming dance, because she wants to get her life back on track, and she needs to do it one step at a time. So the kids all wait until the night of the dance because all of the administration will be busy and they can sneak back into the North Hall. So as the night goes on, Olive slips away from Kyle right as they begin to fix their relationship. And all four of the kids make their way back to the hall. It's okay though, Maps says that Kyle is just too lawful to go with them for this. The first thing that they do is they need to break into Headmaster Hammerhead's office to get Colton's bag of tricks. And Hammerhead has some kind of crazy ruin riddle lock, something right up Maps' alley. While in the office getting back Colton's things though, Maps also finds a crossbow and she hands it to Olive, just in case. They then all make their way across the school grounds, heading back to the girls' dorm where the tunnel entrance to the North Hall is. And that's when Olive sees the giant bat flying overhead, so she takes a shot with this new crossbow. This bat thing has been haunting her since the summer. She has to hit it. And she does. Oh no, what did I do, she thinks. Then she runs over to where the crazy giant bat thing fell. But as she gets closer, whatever it is begins to yell out, "Get away!" But she can't help herself. So she gets closer and she sees Tristan Gray. "Get back! I have the Langstrom man-bat virus. That's why I'm at this school. He's trying to find a cure for me. But last summer I saw you wandering off in a daze, so I followed you. By the time I caught up, you were already in the North Hall and it was on fire, so I ran in to save you. It was Professor McPherson that helped me get you back to the school from there." But before he can explain anything else, Maps once again comes up interrupting, and Tristan takes off for the sky. Before Olive can say anything, Maps begins to drag her off, telling her, "You need to be more careful. Don't worry though, I'll keep you safe." "Thanks, Maps, but I think I can manage," Olive tells her. So the kids all make their way back to the North Hall through the passageways, and they literally use one of Colton's tricks to blow up the covered hole. Panicking, Croc begins to run upstairs, but Olive yells out, "Hey wait, we brought you food." Well, that's Croc's one weakness. So he sits down with the kids and he eats and he tells his stories. "I threw a rock at him!" While the stories are funny, Olive wants to know, "My mom, how did she know about all of these tunnels?" "Sybil said a lot of things, but she was right about this boarded up old building, and it was the first place that I found. Someone made a mess of this joint, but it makes for a decent hideout." Poor Olive can't get any more answers though, as 3 smoke pellets begin to roll on the ground towards the kids and Croc. Oh no, it's Batman! Stay away from me, Croc shouts. You won't take me alive as Batman jumps in swinging. Olive can't help but stand there in shock. It's him. This is Batman, the guy who took her mother. Batman and Croc continue to fight through the smoke when the police begin to form up outside and announce, Killer Croc, this is the Gotham police, and we have the building surrounded. Olive can't look away though. This superhero ruined her life. Furious, she looks down at Coulson's bag on the ground, his bag filled with firecrackers and tools, and she just stares at it until it ignites on fire. The fireworks and crackers all start going off in the building, confusing Batman. Stay away from him! Haven't you done enough already, she shouts. Olive, don't move. But with the building beginning to burn down around them and the structural integrity already ruined, Croc begins to ignore Batman and he grabs the young girl to carry her out of the building and into the tunnels. Mr. Croc, you saved her! You're a hero, Maps tells him. With Batman dealing with the fire, all of the kids begin to run back the way they came. But Croc takes Olive elsewhere. Croc, where are we going? The other kids went that way, Olive asks him. I know these tunnels, little Olive. Long before your mother told me about them. Sybil, your ma. When she gave me the lowdown, at least I think it was Sybil. Sometimes she'd change. She'd have another side of her that wasn't so nice. They typically kept her hopped up on drugs, but when she calmed down, she was herself. It was like she would forget everything that happened to her, everything in Arkham. And she was your ma again. When she looked at me, she didn't see a monster, and she never stopped loving you, little Olive. I was afraid that she'd forgotten everything, forgotten me. Thank you. This is all wrong. I swore I'd protect you, but look what happened. Oh shush, I don't need protecting. I've gotten this far, haven't I? I guess your friends seem all right. And then Croc left Olive as he swam deeper into the sewers alone. You have a little of your ma's fire in you. If that's who you really are, come find me one day, little Olive. So Olive went back to school where Maps was super excited about the adventure they just had. While Olive, she went to the roof to look down at the police trying to find Croc. And that's when Batman found her. You're lucky nobody was hurt. You're lucky you weren't hurt. Don't pretend like you care. You took my mom away. You destroyed my life. You destroy everything. You were reckless back there. Croc is dangerous and belongs behind bars. So was your mother. It was the only way to save Gotham. No, we lost everything and then she couldn't get her medication. None of this is her fault. Don't you get that? One day you'll understand. Now I need Billy Cobblepot's diary. I don't have it. It was in the bag of fireworks and is probably up in smoke now. And with that, Batman left. So the next day at lunch, the kids began to go over everything. The ghost wasn't a ghost, and the monster in the walls was only Croc. But they saw Batman, and they had a crazy adventure. And Kyle, well, he wants Olive to know that she can trust him. She didn't have to slip off. So all of the kids begin to figure out that these buildings are all connected to Arkham Asylum, and Maps decides they need to investigate the rest of these buildings. So, it's time to make the Detective Club with exclusive membership. And thus, the Gotham Academy Detective Club was born. Nothing bad can come out of this. And things in the Academy are only about to get more interesting with their newest student, Damian Wayne, son of Bruce Wayne. Our story begins with Maps having fun with a feather quill that she found when they broke into the headmaster's office recently. She's looking at the boy in front of her and writing down her serpents and spells team. She writes down the name, Eric. But she's so absorbed in writing in her notebook that she doesn't notice when Mr. Scarlet asks her a question. Realizing that she wasn't paying attention, Mr. Scarlet goes in a rant about how books are delicate creatures with delicate feelings. And the student named Eric gets up ready to fight against Mr. Scarlet. Luckily, the new kid in school, Damian Wayne, tackles the boy. Maps is sitting there baffled. Why did Eric go crazy? Oh, he won't do it all for her Serpents and Spells team, so she crosses him off of her list. But that new kid, he is awesome! So she writes down the new name, Damian Wayne. Then she adds, plus Maps, the ultimate power team. Damian turns around confused, and Maps feels herself compelled to hold his hand, and the two kids are holding hands now. What are you doing? Let go of my hand, child! I can't, Maps exclaims. They're stuck together! It must be the magic of the quill! Magic? I don't think so. What did you do? Damian says, accusing her. I wrote your name in my book, and... But that's the moment a raven flies down and grabs the quill right out of Maps' hands. I'm glad that bird stole your damn feather. Now let go of my hand or I'll... Wait! I have an idea, Maps says, and she brings her new friend Damian to her old friend, Palmline. Palm examines their hands and asks Maps if the quill she used to write down Damian and Maps' names was the same one that she stole from the headmaster's office. That's when Maps puts it together. She wrote down Eric's name and he attacked Mr. Scarlet. Then she wrote down Damian plus Maps and they got stuck together. The quill must have some kind of mind control powers. And at that moment, the quill begins affecting Palmline, and she tries to push Damien and Maps out of the window. Damien held on tight, and he was still holding on to Maps since, he couldn't let her go. Then he handed her his grappling gun, telling her to use it. "You have a grappling gun? No way," Maps says, and dreams of marrying the awesome tool. Damien tells her to snap out of it, so she shoots it across the courtyard, and they swing away and into the boys' dorm room, right in front of Maps' brother Kyle. Kyle has a weird red glow in his eyes though, and he begins swinging his tennis racket at Damien and Maps. He misses, so Damien grabs Maps and uses her as a weapon against Kyle. Before they run out of the room, "That was my brother, you jerk," Maps tells him. And as Damien tries to defend his actions, he then sees Maps using his hand as a tissue. "Revenge," she says. "You are such a child. This isn't helping us figure out what's going on." And that gives Maps an idea. They'll go to Professor Ham. No, we're not stopping for lunch. But Professor Ham might actually know how to fix this, because she knew about the Raven earlier. They explain to Professor Ham what's going on, and the professor is reminded of stories from a town in Scotland, a place called Innistree. That jogs Damien's memory. Innistree is where Castle Wayne is located. Maybe this is all connected. As the story goes, the town's children were all being mind-controlled and they were running amok. Once Castle Wayne got involved, Batman magically showed up to save the town, and it turned out that the whole thing was caused by an avian illness. While Batman stopped the birds involved, he was unable to find the eggs of the birds. "That's it," Maps exclaims. "The quill must have been from one of those birds." "Impossible," Damien tells her, but this does seem like an odd coincidence. So the professor helps them go off and find the Raven involved. But as they enter the local graveyard looking around, Maps sees all of her friends with red eyes looking all evil. Damien pulls out his grappling line and he ties up all of her friends to keep them from hurting themselves or, Damien and Maps. Then they see the Raven with the quill, so Damien pulls out a batarang and, well, Maps is distracted by the batarang with huge hearts in her eyes. "Damien, are you Batman?" Damien throws the batarang at the bird, forcing it to drop the quill, and Mr. Scarlet is conveniently there to catch the quill. He explains that the children all came down with an avian illness from this feather, and he'll get them all fixed up. He figured it all out when Eric was acting weird this morning. "That can't be right, Mr. Scarlet," Maps exclaims. "It has to be magic. Damien and I are stuck together." "No, you just have to want to let go," Mr. Scarlet tells them. So, they let go. And they realize they really weren't stuck together at all. The situation gets worse though as the headmaster arrives to bring both Maps and Damien to his office. He accuses Maps of breaking into his office and taking that quill, and stealing from the headmaster is grounds for expulsion. But Damien stands up and he tells the headmaster that it was all him. He did everything. Maps had nothing to do with it. Maps looks over at him shocked, and Damien smiles back at her. So the headmaster expelled Damian Wayne from Gotham Academy. As Damien was leaving the school grounds, Maps caught up with him to show him that she got her notebook back and that someone scratched their names out. That's why the spell was broken. It was magic. And she wanted to thank him for saving her. He really didn't have to do that. Damien doesn't really know what to say, so he hands her his batarang. Starstruck by the batarang, Maps stares at it and doesn't even notice Damien leaving. And that's when Professor Ham comes over. "Maya, we need to talk. It's about Olive." The school is silent and everyone attends a funeral, and that funeral is for Olive's mother. She's passed away. Olive stands there and everyone tries to tell her that they are sorry for her loss. Kyle goes to console Olive, but before he can go to her, he sees Tristan already there, and Olive and Tristan walk away. The next day at school, Kyle can't seem to shake this uneasy feeling about Tristan, and it's to the point of affecting his tennis practice. Coach Humphries grabs the tennis balls and tells Kyle that he needs to underspin to get those approach shots, but Kyle really isn't listening. Coach Humphries throws the ball at Kyle and then he begins to storm off since his student isn't bothering learning, and that's when Kyle notices someone underneath the bleachers. As he gets closer, he notices that it's Tristan. But why is Tristan here? After Tristan begins to leave, Kyle starts to follow him as he goes to Dr. Langstrom's lab. Inside, Kyle overhears Tristan and Dr. Langstrom discussing Tristan's condition and how they can't fix it right now. And Kyle sees Tristan turn into a man-bat. Kyle falls over screaming no, and he runs off to tell Olive what happened. He begins to beat on her door, telling her that he knows that she's in here. She's got to stay away from Tristan. But when Olive opens the door, she tells him that she just wants to be left alone. Kyle tells her that she needs to stay away from Tristan. And Olive tells him that he can't tell her who she can and cannot hang out with. He tries to tell Olive that this is different. Tristan is actually a bad guy, but Olive finishes putting on her coat, telling Kyle to grow up, and storms out of the room. Kyle asks where she's going, and she tells him that she has a guidance appointment and not to follow her. Kyle slumps down, saying that he just wanted to keep her safe, and that's when he hears a voice. "Oh my crap, we're bad on campus." Maps brings Kyle to a secret tunnel that Croc had used in her last adventure, and she begins to ask about Tristan. She says this is like Christmas and her birthday and Easter and everything rolled up into one. And then she begins to chew on her book. Kyle tells her that they need to focus, and he asks if these tunnels can get them to the guidance office. Maps tells him yes, and she'll take him there only if Kyle promises to take her to meet this man-bat. Maps and Kyle sneak through the tunnels to listen to Olive's meeting with Professor Strange. And Professor Strange tells Olive that these are some hard times, but maybe it will do her some good to talk to someone. Maybe even a friend? Olive tells Professor Strange that she does have a friend, Tristan. She can talk to him. And with that news, Kyle tells Maps that they're gonna go find Tristan now. Maps gets super excited that she is finally gonna be on her first B&E. And Kyle tells her that he's the prefect, so technically it's not a B&E. They're just gonna tell Tristan that they were doing room checks. But while Maps is checking out his collection of black t-shirts, Tristan gets back to his room and he asks what they're doing there. Kyle tries to tell him that they're doing room checks, but Maps confronts him right away, telling him that they know that he's a werebat. Tristan tries to defend himself, telling them that they have no clue what they're talking about, but then Kyle tells Tristan that he's not going to leave unless Tristan tells them what's going on. Tristan, in response, transforms and escapes out the window. Maps and Kyle run outside and they chase Tristan through the graveyard, and when they catch up, they find Tristan laying by a gravestone with a wound in his chest. He asks for their help, so Kyle begins to help him up and take him back to Dr. Langstrom. Dr. Langstrom tells him that they need to go get Professor McPherson, and while Map goes to get the professor, Kyle decides that he needs to find Olive and tell her everything that happened involving Tristan. Kyle finds Olive down by the docks, and he begins to explain what happened with Tristan. Kyle then tells her that he knows that Tristan means something to her, but does she really know anything about him? Olive tells him that they need to talk, and it's about her. Olive tells him that those fires from before, they were her, and Tristan came to save her. If you're curious about what we learned about those fires, it's in the last video. She goes on to say that it also happened a second time, and that her mom was locked away in Arkham for starting fires as well. But before she can ask the question on her mind, which is, are they going to lock her up for similar powers? Kyle tells her not to worry. He won't let anyone take her away. And then they kiss. Olive looks surprised and tells him that that was a mistake, so go on ahead and she'll be right behind him. Olive then turns back and sees a letter floating in the water, and she picks it up and begins to read it. And oddly, it's a letter written from her mother, telling her not to trust anyone. But remember, she does love her, and it's signed, until they meet again. While she's reading this letter though, someone in ragged clothing is looming over her. As Olive finishes reading the letter, she feels something behind her, and that's when she turns around and sees Maps, and everyone else from the detective club. Olive hides the letter in her pocket, and Maps tells her that they need to go find what attacked Tristan. So the students all go off to where Tristan was attacked. When they get there, Palmline finds what seems to be fur, and that's when Colton looks at it and tells everyone that it needs to be analyzed. He takes them to his RV in the woods, and Maps' response to that is, "Holy cannoli, you have a secret laboratory!" Inside, Colton determines that the fur they found was wolf hair. And Palmline tells everyone not to worry, she knows how to handle werewolves. They all go back to her room where she hands out silver necklaces to everyone, and that's when Maps notices that Olive isn't with them. Back in Olive's room, Olive came back to find Catherine, Maps' roommate, taking down some of Olive's posters. When she turns around to see Olive there, her eyes look really weird, and that's when she runs out of the room, and Olive goes to put her posters back on the walls when she hears something. She looks down and she sees an envelope, and written on it is Silverlock Olive Classified. She begins to read it and discovers that it's filled with information all about her, as well as things about her mom being a costume villain. Before she can look any further, Maps runs inside and tells Olive that they have to go hunt down the werewolf. But Olive stops her and tells her that she needs to go see Professor Strange first. Olive heads over to his office and shows him the file that she found and asks why she's being watched over. He explains that there's actually two students being watched over, her and Tristan. So Olive goes to see Tristan and asks how he's doing. Tristan tells her that this isn't bad compared to being shot with a crossbow, and that's when Olive explains that both her and Tristan were placed here and they're being monitored. And that's when a werewolf comes bursting in screaming revenge. The werewolf snarls and he yells that Milo cursed him, and now he's going to curse everyone here. Tristan grabs the werewolf and he flies him outside as Palmline, Kyle, and Colton show up asking if everything's okay. Maps asks if anyone else noticed that the werewolf was wearing Coach Humphrey's clothing, and Professor McPherson asks, "A werewolf? Doctor, you have some explaining to do." Dr. Langstrom mentions that he was a little late on creating the antidote, but Colton tells him that he might be able to actually help with that. Olive and the rest of the gang run over to find Tristan, but Tristan explains that the wolf got away, and everyone starts to search for the werewolf, and that's when Olive hears something in the woods. At that moment, the werewolf appears, and then she hears a voice, and everything begins to turn red. A figure begins to appear behind Olive, telling her to use it. Use her fire! Burn everything! They did this to her! Now everything needs to burn! But just before Olive can begin to use her fire powers, Colton appears and tranquilizes the werewolf. As the dart begins to take effect, the werewolf changes back into Coach Humphreys. The professors then all show up and they tell everyone that it's time to go back to their dorm rooms. And as the students begin to head back to their dorms, Palmline stops Olive, telling her that she needs to talk to her privately. The two of them walk into the theater nearby, and Palmline tells Olive that she kind of stole the letter that Olive was trying to hide. Upset, Olive starts to yell at Palmline, but Palmline tells her that she had to. She's been doing some research on this Calamity person. But Olive stopped paying attention to Palmline because her attention is now turned towards the stage because Calamity is there. She turns to Palmline and tells them that they need to get out of here now. And an instant later, the theater begins to catch fire. As the building begins to fill with smoke, the students that were rehearsing their play and Mr. Trent, the theater director, manage to escape outside. Mr. Trent is flabbergasted because he doesn't know what he's gonna do now. He's already lost some of his students in the play, and now with this, he's gonna lose more. What is he gonna do? Before Map's roommate Catherine can offer to help with the play, Olive decides that it would be a good chance to investigate the theater, and she jumps ahead of Catherine, volunteering. Yes, a lot of the students have been getting hurt there, but now that Olive saw her mother, she is certain that she'll find some clues. A few days later, the students begin rehearsing when Colton notices a muddy footprint. As the students go to check it out, they notice that it leads to a dead end. As they continue rehearsing, Olive begins to go through her lines when she notices something dripping on her head. Is it mud? She looks up and she sees someone trying to untie a sandbag. She jumps out of the way just before the sandbag comes crashing down. The students begin to chase down the hooded figure, but they end up following them with muddy footprints to a dead end. And that's when Map sees something on the ground. It's her map of the auditorium. No one should have this. And that's when Map realizes the only person who could have this. Everyone heads over to Map's dorm room to ask Catherine about the map, but when they get there, they see more mud on the ground, and they pull back the curtains to see Catherine, and her face is dripping! It's mud literally melting off! The girls all scream, and the mud-like Catherine escapes out the windows. Everyone goes back to the theater to find Catherine there, but when they try to talk to her, more mud swirls around her, and soon a giant clay figure tells them that there is only Clayface. Olive and Maps quickly grab a hose and they begin to spray down Clayface until he starts to dissolve away. Boy, he really isn't a villain to be feared, and the only person left standing is Catherine as he dissolves. Olive and Maps begin to walk Catherine home, realizing Catherine's father is Clayface, and he was behind the accidents at the theater because Clayface held a grudge against Mr. Trent, the theater director. Olive begins to wonder if what she saw was really her mother, and that's when Palmline comes running up with a newspaper, and she tells her that the newspaper is stating that Calamity is back in Gotham. Olive sits back wondering if this could possibly be true, and if it is, does that mean her mother is actually alive? Olive continues her visits with Professor Strange regarding the visions that she's been having about her mother, and she shows him the paper stating that Calamity is back in Gotham. She then tells him that she needs to go see if her mother is really alive, but Professor Strange tells her that that's probably a bad idea, but he can tell that she's already made up her mind. So the plan is set. The students are going to go to Kyle's tennis tournament, which is being held in Gotham, and then they're going to sneak off to City Hall to find the paper records of Olive's mother. As they get to the stadium, Kyle fakes falling down to draw everyone's attention, and the students begin to sneak off. Olive and Maps end up going to City Hall, while Colton and Palmline go to Palmline's mother's law offices to look for case records. Olive and Maps end up taking the subway to City Hall, and they sneak in through the roof, and once the coast is clear, they head over to the records room to try and find the file on Sybil. Olive assumes that it's going to take a while, but that's when she stumbles on the Silverlock family records. So she asks Map to keep watch while she goes through these records. As Maps leaves the record room, she runs into Red Robin. Without even thinking, she throws the batarang that she got from Damien, which if you're curious about that, we'll also link that video down below. And Red Robin catches it and notices that this isn't a fake one. So he asks, "What kind of Robin are you?" She's confused. Isn't he Robin? And he tells her that no, he's Red Robin, which confuses Maps even more. Aren't all Robins red? Red Robin explains that right now there's a whole bunch of kids running around calling themselves Robin. Red Robin tells her that he's gotta go though. He doesn't have much time and needs to get into the records room. Maps tries to stop him, telling him that Olive needs more time to look into Calamity, which she realizes was probably a mistake. And Red Robin explains that he's her all about Calamity. Batman and the original Robin went to rescue some people from a burning building when they ran into Calamity. Robin managed to stop Calamity, but that's when he took off Calamity's mask and they discovered that it was Sybil Silverlock. So Batman had Sybil locked up, and then he took her young daughter and he put her somewhere safe so that she can be watched and monitored. Back inside, Olive continues going through the family records, and she notices that all of the Silverlocks have either been troubled or thrown in prison or asylums. And that's when Olive begins to wonder if she too will end up with that same fate, and a voice begins to call out to her. When she looks back, she sees Calamity, her mother. Maps and Red Robin run in to see Calamity starting a fire and talking to Olive. So Red Robin jumps in to fight Calamity, and Calamity tells Olive that they'll meet again, and then disappears. But as she leaves, she dropped something. Red Robin has to go though, he has other things going on, so Maps asks him how she can contact him for their next mission, and he tells her he'll get in touch with her, Robin. Maps then gets a call from Palmline, but before Maps can tell Olive what happened, Maps just says, "Oh my crap." Olive and Maps rush over to the stadium because Palmline told her that Kyle went missing. The last place that he was the lockers before he went missing, so the students decided to go start looking there. Everyone went off looking for Kyle, and no one bothered to look for a clue inside of his locker. Colton breaks it open, and Olive notices something inside that looks like the thing that Calamity dropped in the records room. After Olive puts the two pieces together, she notices that this is a key to Arkham Asylum. The next day, Maps' parents come to pick her up from school and take her away until they can find Kyle. But Maps has a better idea. She's gonna have Catherine, who happens to be made out of clay, pretend that she is Maps so that the real Maps can go find Kyle. Olive and Maps hop in Colton's car, which he obviously either stole or not and doesn't have a license for, and they all drive over to Arkham, and that's when they walk in. But as they're going in, Palmline tells Olive that maybe she should wait outside. All of this stuff going on with Calamity, Olive might be a liability. Not happy about it, Olive does decide it might be a good idea and she decides to wait outside while everyone goes back inside. Once Maps and everyone gets inside, Palmline asks how they are supposed to find Kyle in this maze, and Maps tells her, "Easy. Hey, Kyle!" Maps, "Help, I'm down here." Easy peasy, Detective Club for the win. But Olive, who is waiting outside, begins to hear a voice calling to her again, and she looks up and sees a figure standing in a tower nearby. Once Olive goes inside the tower, she starts to hear Calamity's voice again through a door. So she tries to break through it without much luck, and that's when the door begins to creak open. Olive walks inside and finds Calamity's costume on a table, and that's when she hears another voice telling her that her mother is alive, inside of her. Olive looks back to see that the voice that is telling her this is Professor Strange, and he tells Olive that he once knew Olive's mother. She was a patient of his. No one knew more about Sybil than him. However, he wasn't able to unlock the secrets of Calamity, the secrets held for generations by the Silverlocks, secrets now only inside of Olive. Professor Strange has been wearing Sybil's costume to try and learn more, but now that Olive is here, she can become Calamity. Olive starts to ask if he knew so much about her mother, then how did she die? And she pushes closer and closer, and fire begins to brew around her. Professor Strange starts to panic and he tells her, "It wasn't him, it was Calamity." But Olive keeps pushing him, pushing closer, and the fire gets stronger, and she tells him to tell her the truth. After rescuing Kyle, Maps and the rest of the group hear a scream and they begin to run upstairs. They enter the room and Maps asks what happened, and Olive tells her that Calamity saved her. But Colton tells everyone that they have to go. The building is starting to come down because for some reason, it just caught fire. Later at school, Olive begins to walk by Professor McPherson when her dog Ham begins to growl at Olive. McPherson calms the dog down and tells Olive that Kyle's parents are here to thank her, but Olive tells her that she really isn't up for that kind of thing right now. She wanted to tell McPherson about everything that had happened, about Professor Strange, her mom. She didn't feel like it was the right time. McPherson tells her that if there's anything she wants to talk about, she'll be here for her. And Olive thinks that she really doesn't need someone to talk to finally, for the first time. She actually feels good. For the first time since being put in Gotham Academy, she feels whole. She has her answers.
And that was volumes 1 and 2 of Gotham Academy. What did you guys think of this one? Let us know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Rest in peace, Benny. We miss you.